Nancy Hart here. I have an origin story for you today. We've all got them. They all come in shapes and colors and flavors. Some are fun, some are maybe not so fun, but we all have origin stories that accompany us. And this one, it has shapes and forms and colors just like the rest. And it goes like this. So a really creative and curious 10-year-old girl is looking for something to do. And what she loves to do most is read. She's particularly a big fan of Nancy Drew Mysteries and anything about horses. She loves horse stories. And there's nothing around in the house that she hasn't read recently. So she heads to her mother's drawer, one of the drawers in the closet. And it's not off limits. It's just, it's just mom stuff. And she pulls open the drawer and she looks in it, and there are papers and bills and checkbooks and all this other kind of stuff. And on top, she discovers 3 books, and she decides to get curious. So the first one she picks up and she recognizes as a school book for her mother, and it looks like this. Greg Shorthand. For any of you who are old enough to have seen something like this was the precursor to taking notes on a phone when you had to do it by hand or into a voice recorder before we had any of that. So this was something that she learned as she went back to school as a woman who was just divorcing and needed a job. So she went back to school. It's one of the things she learned. So our little girl played around with this for a little bit and went, meh. Second book she picked up was a yoga book. Now, we're talking, ladies and gentlemen, 1972. Yoga, as it is today, we all know is amazing exercise and mind centering and mindset stuff and just all kinds of yummy goodness and 14,000 flavors of it, right? But back then, it was considered kind of out there. And there was a word that was used in those days called hippie, which meant you were kind of out there and weird and, wore funny earrings and all that kind of stuff. And let's just say the mom was not a hippie by any stretch of the imagination, but she did have a bad back. And she had been wearing a corset, and she had seen a lady on public television who was doing this thing called yoga. And she thought that it was really, really interesting. And she was wondering if it could help her and her back, because she was literally wearing a corset. We have those stretch bands now, but a corset to help support her back. And she went, and come to find out, several weeks in, all of a sudden the corset's getting thrown out, and she's finding healing for her back in a way that had not been discovered before for her. So, 10-year-old takes out the book, puts, kind of pops things on, and goes into bow pose and all kinds of these things that many of us wish we could do right now, right? And tries it out and goes, okay, well, I'm looking at the pictures in this book. And she's like, no, okay, I'm done with that. Then she picks up book number 3, and it's this. Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Okay, what the heck is this all about? This was actually a book by a plastic surgeon back in the 60s and 70s, who was helping bodies be shaped into their best on the exterior, but was really curious when his patients on the interior weren't matching what was going on. They were still having image problems, if you will. So he got very curious about it, developed a body of work around it. We would now think of that as something that is around perhaps mindset or self-image work, right? So here's this little lady with these 3 books. And this impressionable 10-year-old who is reading this book and understanding and sees the words and can read them, but has absolutely no relationship to them. But what does that indicate about mom? What it does is that she, in this environment, didn't have a lot of resources. And she was looking for resources, she would say it differently now, but to help heal her body and to help her feel better in her heart and her soul and move through the world in a better way, in a different way. What does this all mean about this origin story? So here's this 10-year-old, who of course is me, reading all this. Well, as I look at that and I look ahead decades later, I see the influence of what was not taught to me, but I caught from her. She never said, hey, let's go to yoga class, or hey, try on malts, or try on, Wayne Dyer and erroneous zones, or anything like that, right? She was just modeling behavior, and I got curious. So I would pose to you today, as you look in your origin story and look at it with a kind eye, a compassionate eye, what was taught and what was caught? What did you catch? How has that influenced your life? Because I can almost draw a direct line now with hindsight to see that the world I'm operating in now, this desire to serve and coach people, was really, I think, laid its groundwork and was birthed out of this body of work. It was certainly influenced by this body of work that my mother shared. And I would say to you, we're talking about this today for me as part of my origin story, because we would be celebrating her 91st birthday today. So happy birthday in heaven, Mom. And my call out to you, my call to action for you is, yes, go look at your origin story. Look back. We all have enough time on the planet now. Look back and see how it's influenced who you are today. Be generous, be compassionate, and let's show it some gratitude. And I would also offer you the idea, as you are modeling for the people who work for you, perhaps your children, your grandchildren, the other people around you, that here's an opportunity to notice what you're noticing and to really notice it's not always what's taught, it's what's caught. And what do you want to leave behind? What do you want to share about who you are for somebody else's origin story? Would love to hear from you. How does this work? How is this working for you? Feel free to comment below or to head over to Nancy at Whole Heart Evolution. Let me know how you're doing. That's it for now, everybody. Happy birthday to Diane Mary Hart, and enjoy your origin story. Have a great one, everybody. Later, Gators. See you next week.